What's going on, everybody? Thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you guys are excited because I know I am. Why? Because this next hour is going to be so jam-packed, full of hope, positivity, optimism, the whole nine, baby. And you got to tell yourself that I will not be denied of the things that I want out of this life, because you are here today being excited. Just as beautiful as it is outside, as beautiful as the individual watching it. Pull up a chair, grab a couple of shots, let your hair down, and kick your shoes off, baby, because we getting ready to kick things over the bang. Let's go!
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. I'm kind of, but I'm Ross, you know. Jaffe is nothing more than a zombie extra, you know. Joseph Jaffe is not famous.
But he's officially. Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company,
deal.
Yeah.
So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
I never, you know what? With all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm overgone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you! You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How did I do that?
You're insane.
I am insane. But you know what? If this is what it feels like to be insane, you know what? What's that old saying? If this is being wrong, I don't want to be right. Why would I want to be right? Today's the only day, and tonight is the only night that matters. I'm here with my glass of grape juice, wink, my Cabernet Sauvignon, and I am happy to see you. Why wouldn't I be? What are you doing? It's Tuesday, September 28th. It is 9:03 p.m. You have all these wonderful opportunities. For example, to get a JAFFE coin. There is today's QR code, and all you got to do is just point your phone at the QR code and get yourself a prize. You deserve it. You've worked hard and you deserve a JAFFE coin. Well, let me tell you something. Speaking of JAFFE coins, I'm quite happy. I'm quite chuffed because I actually put out these campaigns. The whole thing about my coin is designed to figure out ways to integrate with my show, with me, to be a part of the JAFFE economy. In fact, I just launched a new thing right now, which is if you hold, let me show it to you full screen. If you hold 1,500 JAFFE coin from December 1st through December 31st, I will produce an entire episode of the show for you, for your clients, for yourself, private, public, whatever you want. But the beautiful thing about this is you hold the coin. You own the coin. I don't. That's what I love about it. So you're getting something that is worth about $10,000 pretty much for free. Well, obviously you're buying that JAFFE coin, but you can do with it, you can do with the coin what you want. So these are the things that we're doing, experimentation. And the beautiful thing about experimentation is it's okay to fail. It's okay to be wrong because you learn from them. You learn so much from them in the process. Well, why am I even mentioning this to you today or tonight? Because I was actually approached for an hour of my time, and the person in question wanted to actually pay in crypto, in JAFFE coin. And so I put it out there at about $200 for 1 hour of my time. And I put it out there, $200 US, because you can create a campaign and you can either create it based on JAFFE coin, which obviously fluctuates, or a fixed USD amount. And this person came back to me and they said, no, don't put it out at $200 USD because it's fixed. That's not the power of crypto. That is not the power of the JAFFE coin. what they said is put it out at the equivalent at the time of whatever the JAFFE coin was. Well, the thing that was so interesting is that at one point, that 1 hour of my time was almost $450, and then it dropped, and right now, as you can see, it's about $304 for 1 hour of my time. But it's out of my hands now. It's out of my control. And the beautiful thing about it is it was bought, but not by the person that originally said they were going to buy it. They're still umming and ahhing and claiming that they'll buy it, but it was actually bought by Natalie Nixon, Dr. Natalie Nixon, who was a guest on my show. That is not why I had her on my show, and it's I didn't expect her to buy an hour of my time, but I was so happy because it was the first time it was done that I actually said to her, you know what, Natalie, I'm going to give you a plug. This has got nothing to do with what you just bought, but I'm going to give you a plug. And so she said, would you please mention my creativity quotient mindset? Now, I don't know to what extent, and I have to ask her whether this was created in tandem or inspired by or even a part of the conversation that the two of us had on my show. But I can tell you that this was the 1 minute highlight that I produced, and I'd like to play it for you right now.
Part of the world that I come from, design thinking, we talk all the time about empathy, empathy, empathy. The best services, products, experiences are designed with the people who use the stuff in mind. Before you can empathize with anybody, you must be curious. So curiosity is the precursor to empathy. Empathy hopefully leads to action, and action, as a result of that deep-seated question, leads to equity. So in my view, there is a direct, bold line from curiosity through empathy to action to equity. It has to start by asking new, different, and better friggin' questions. That's actually one of the chapters in the book, is ask a better friggin' question.
Oh my God. Like, listen, if I could drop this mic right now on the floor, I would be like, get down. Exactly. So there you go, and there you have it. And now she's produced this beautiful model that you can see on your screen. Curiosity is the precursor to empathy, and it shows you, and gratitude is in the middle. Gratitude and generosity, I mean, these are things that we discuss with Dave Kirpin, that we were discussing. It's just amazing how it comes full circle. All these conversations coming together at the right place at the right time. So this is the creativity quotient, CQ, right? There is IQ and there is EQ, but this is CQ. This is the creativity quotient mindset framework that Dr. Natalie Nixon has developed. And it started with this principle, as I mentioned, that curiosity is the precursor to empathy. You can learn more at figure8thinking.com, where you can hire Natalie for a keynote and strategic advisory session. And while you're there, download a free sample chapter of her book, The Creativity Leap. What I'd like you to take away from this right now is this is the power of leaning in. This is the power of first mover advantage. This is the power of being able to kind of put yourself out there. And right now, Natalie has got this plug, and maybe she'll get a plug for the rest of the week. And again, it doesn't include the 1 hour of my time that she's bought, and maybe I'll even give her 2. So I just wanted to share this with you. Yes, I'm a little excited, because everybody wants revenue, monetization of the show, however you want to call it. But now let's get to the national day of the day. It is National Sons Day. So little shout out to Jack Jaffe and Aaron Jaffe. This photo was taken in our Jeep, not the Jeep where we got into the wrong Jeep, but the right Jeep while we were down in Florida, in Miami. And I just love the effect. I don't know where the red light came from, whether it was a traffic light or the brake lights of another car. But it's just a beautiful photo and a beautiful natural image. So any of you that are out there that have sons, that are a son, hope you are enjoying the day. Well, we talk about 3 sons In fact, that was my post today. Well, this week, we're talking about the three Chris's. Maybe they're the three wise men. I'm not really sure, but based on, I still haven't corrected the slide. Chris Matz, who is the man you do see on the left, was yesterday. What an amazing conversation. Tonight, Chris West, and tomorrow, Chris Wallace. Too many Chris's, too little time. Thank God for Toy Sweeney on Thursday to allow me to stop talking about Chris's. But you will enjoy, no doubt, the conversation with Chris West tonight, not Chris Matz and not Chris Wallace. And then on Friday, we have a reunion show with Francine Hardaway with Chris Burgrave. Oh my God, another Chris. And then John Kutsia and maybe a few special guests as well. So come one, come all, and be a part of this community and be a part of this special conversation. Well, tonight we're going to talk about, do I even need to say anything more than one of my favorite subjects? It's words, it's grammar, and yes, it is the whole your versus your conversation. There is nothing that I can't stand more than people who mix and mess up your and your. You could be posting about your most beloved cat being flattened by a steamroller with a caption, "You're not going to believe the tragic demise of my fluffles, Y-O-U-R." And I'm going to post an immediate comment with one word, Y-O-U apostrophe R-E asterisk. It's the one time, and hopefully the only time, I'm going to be downright cold and heartless. I even own a cap with a word written on it. And then along comes my guest tonight, Chris West, with a rather unique and compelling point of view on grammar elitists. Grammar as a class war, he contends. And he might have a point, an exclamation point. No, not 3 points, but 1 point. It's causing me to adjust my behavior and point of view. And that's the point, really. Words matter. And the specific choice of words have a fundamental impact on shaping and changing culture. Writing this seated soliloquy every day has been instrumental in terms of providing a more structured and disciplined approach to my words, to my writing, to my speaking. My goal is to write 400 words, and I'm near perfect at hitting a daily 390 to 410 word range. I'm not sure if it would surprise you to learn that it's a lot easier to write more words than it is to write less. It's rather easy to expand, embellish, or espouse. It's a lot harder to be more efficient and cut down word count. My struggle is that I get rather attached to my words. I fall in love with my prose. I battle to prioritize and ultimately decide what stays and what gets the delete key treatment. And yet, it's quite cathartic and even liberating when I can hit the save button and know that I've been able to meet my daily mental quota of keeping the soliloquy streak going. I would hope that my brand voice comes through clearly and decisively, that you would be able to read this in black text on white canvas and have a good sense that it was once a soliloquy on Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous. Well, that's the aspirational goal, and until that's IT apostrophe S is achieved, I guess YOU apostrophe RE, we're just gonna have to be stuck with me and my eccentricities. And by the way, that was 399 words. So the streak keeps on going and the streak keeps on growing. So I hope you like that. Remember, all you got to do is when you see that QR code, that QR code will get you one Jaffe coin. It's about $6 and change at the moment. And I'm going to keep it up for, I don't know, as long as I possibly can. And, it's fun. As I said, experimentation is the backbone of whatever this new normal is. Something, I guess, to think about. I always get very excited when I welcome a guest back. I mean, for one, it basically says that they wanted to come back, right? So like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So these are people that, you know, are suckers for punishment. They're masochists like I am. So they want to come back for more. And so Chris West is coming back for more. He's basically now what I'm calling guest 48.2. So this is a new thing that I started today. He's actually guest number 48. He would have been, I guess, 282, but he's 48, and this is part 2. And he's already talking to me in the background about being guest number. He wants to come back for point 3. He wants multiple camera angles. So he's already angling for that, which means he needs to produce yet another book. So it's all good. For those of you that don't remember this remarkable, famous man, Chris West is the founding partner of Verbal Identity, the world's leading strategic brand consultancy focusing on brand language. His firm has created distinctive and engaging brand voices for global and national brands, relaunches, and startups from B2B and B2C and everything in between. His firm defines brand voices, builds brand voice guidelines, and trains writers and non-writers in the voice. And I'm not talking about the show on television. He now lives in Oxford, England, with his wife, children, and a handful of Siberian forest cats. His new book, Strong Language, is published September 28th, which, guess what? Guess what? That is today. So we are truly honored. Chris, congratulations. Today is your launch date.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Joseph.
Why the hell would you choose to spend it with me?
Well, of course I'm going to. You know, I was so pleased when was it? A year ago or something, you had me on the show and we talked. And then I was writing the book, but I didn't want to say anything because everyone's writing a book. And I wanted to make sure it happened and that I was happy with it. So yeah, I'm really pleased. September the 28th on the show again, and the book is launching.
Well, you know what? I have been known, it has been known that this book has elevated and catapulted authors to best-selling status. Seriously, it has happened.
Really? Is that a guarantee?
You know, or your money back, which thankfully you didn't pay anything. So, you know, it's a money back guarantee.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled, and I'm very happy for you. Glenn is here. He says, "Good evening, Joe." He's playing along. I love that. That's awesome. Good
Thanks,
evening
Glenn.
to you, Glenn. You know, Glenn needs his beauty sleep. So I appreciate it when he joins me in the evening. And Glenn, I hope right now you are shining your phone on that QR code above Chris's shiny head and getting yourself a JAFFE coin. It's all part of the streaming era, Chris, right? This is a variety show in the streaming era, meaning we recognize and reward live tune in. That's what happens on the show. Tom Morris is here. I want to say in the strongest language that so I got this for you, Chris. This is one thing that's changed since last time. You want to be bringing strong language. You want to say you can do that because we will just bleep the hell out of you.
You've got to
I
get
love
the
that.
timing right.
You know what they say? It's like you know, small things amuse small minds. So but enough about my bleeping machine. Let's talk about you. This is new since you were here. I don't think, did we have fun facts last time you were here?
Didn't have fun facts.
All right, so it's great.
It was black and white. It was so long ago.
Oh my goodness, it was actually just radio. It was a telegram, and now there is an app called Telegram. So what's old is new again. Well, we didn't find out too many fun facts about you because, you know, you are like a secret agent. You're like the MI5 or Mossad or CIA. But we did find this about you, which is, can you believe we actually managed to find one of these Ernest Hemingway-like images? You wrote a film that went on to win Best Film at a Barcelona Film Festival while drunk in one evening.
Yeah,
so, you know, I mean, you didn't even need the while drunk in one evening. But tell us about this Hemingway-like story.
I was working in advertising, and a young commercials director approached me and he said, let's write a film together. And I said, yeah, sure. And he had the idea for the story. And he kept on talking to me about the story, and he said, will you write it? And I kept on saying, yes, I will. Yes, I will. And I kept on saying, yes, I will, for about a year. And then one day he said, Chris, look, if you don't actually write the film, I'm going to go and write the film. So that evening, I had to overcome everything that was holding me back, whatever that was, fear of the white page, whatever it was, and had a drink to kind of stiffen my nerve, started writing, got about a third of the way through and thought, actually, this is all right. I know what I'm doing. Had another drink to stiffen my nerve, wrote the middle third, had another drink, and finished it off. Luckily, it was a short film. Otherwise, I might not have, made it out the door at the end of the evening. But yeah, it's true.
Or you can hold, you can hold your alcohol intake.
Like Hemingway, I don't think so.
So I mean, people know the story that have watched, all my episodes. But when I was writing one of my books, I tried the Hemingway approach, and I think we were actually in the Bahamas on vacation. So every night, we had young kids at the time. We had one room, and so once they went down, there really wasn't much to do in the room. So I would just go down to the lobby, which was the only place where there was Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I would just start to drink, profusely. I mean, I say profusely, but, one scotch after another scotch after. And I was writing my book, and I would write and write and write until like the battery was dying, and I felt inspired, and I was just it was like a muse. The whole vibe was like a muse. And I felt so accomplished and so proud of what I'd done until I went back and reread what I'd written. And I don't even think it was English. I think they were just symbols and, like Martian. It was absolutely incomprehensible and indecipherable. And I never did it again, or at least not with so much scotch. So Hemingway clearly was a genius, and I am not worthy.
Well, Hemingway is famous and the rest of us aren't. But you're actually referring, I don't know if you realize, to a really great writer's tip. And the expression is write drunk, edit sober, which I guess you were taking quite literally, of writing drunk and editing sober the next morning, I guess. But actually, it's a really good piece of advice for writers, which is we've all got to overcome that fear that it's not going to be good enough. It's never going to achieve what I want it to do. And you just have to kind of get over that somehow. You can make yourself kind of giddy with chocolate. You can make yourself drunk, or even better, you can just get on and do it. And in fact, one of our clients is Alphabet's Moonshot Factory, the place that hosts loads of kind of crazy technology ideas that they think are going to change the world. And I think they probably will change the world as well. And they have this really great expression there, which is version 0. crap, which is just get on. When you're building something and you don't know how it's going to come out, just build version 0. crap. Admit to yourself, it's going to be crap. It doesn't matter. Take the stigma, take the high bars of achievement we all normally apply to something, take all of those away and just let it be crap. And I think it applies as much to writers as to any other kind of creators. Just get on. I think the biggest determinant of success is how soon you start writing, or how soon you start creating. And if you accept first thing it's going to be crap, then you can start straight away.
Oh, I love that. In fact, I'm now looking back and introspecting and saying maybe the first year of this show was version 0. crap. But now we're like 0. crap beta. I don't know, or 0.1. But that's great. Version 0. crap. It's a fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it can only come from Alphabet, right?
Oh yeah, of course. And they had a whole, the team over at the Moon, what is X? It used to be called Google X. It's now just X. They have a whole range of language which really kind of conceptualizes and crystallizes different things about their business. And 0. crap is one of them. They talk about graduating their businesses. That's pretty cool. And there's a few other kind of terms. And once you start introducing new terms into your culture, actually you're shaping people's thinking about what you're doing, and that really helps.
That's a very interesting concept as well, which is recognizing, again, the power of words, right? The power of phrases, the power of introducing things that don't look and sound the same, that but they are seeds, right? They are seeds to new branches and behavior changes, and ultimately the evolution of culture. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're 100% right. And, language shapes thinking. So if you can kind of shape people's language, you can shape their thinking. There was a really interesting report a couple of weeks ago from Nomura Holdings. And I obviously don't on a regular basis read the publications of quant analysts over at different banks. But their report was, actually it was covered by a guy called John Authors over in Bloomberg. And his title was, if your CEO speaks like Kant, don't trust the share price, or something like that. It probably wasn't as harsh as that. But anyway, the quant analysts over at Nomura did an analysis of the different kind of complexity of language used by the CEOs of the Russell 1000 largest cap businesses on their earnings calls. Not the 10K written statements, but the actual what the CEO said. And what they found was, if you applied the standard kind of measures of simplicity of language to what those CEOs were saying, the CEOs with the simplest language had the highest share price change.
I mean, it's humanese, right? Instead of jargon and cliches, and right now in the whole NFT space, everyone's talking about tokenized metaverse. It's as bad as it's ever been. It's worse than it's ever been, even in the startup world, where people are just throwing jargon. And I mean, how much jargon can we cram into a tweet? And they don't realize that they're all looking and sounding the same, and none of them are standing out.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, like you, I think I kind of hate jargon most of the time, but occasionally there is a good reason to use it, which is to show your reader that you know what you're talking about, and maybe even to show the reader that you know what they would be talking about. And sometimes, of course, the biggest purpose of jargon is just to bullshit your reader and make the world believe you know something that they never were.
Oh, yeah. I did that too late.
Do that too late.
But carry on.
I'll give you a sign like this when there's going to be some bad language. That's it.
No, but seriously, we can tolerate words like bullshit. We don't even have to bleep that. But I mean, Tom says clarity is great value, but there's also balance. There's the ability to, to your point, sometimes to use some of these words to say, listen, we know what we're doing here. We're not, kind of, we're proficient. We're sufficiently proficient, if you will. But at the same time, we didn't check our common sense, and our empathy and our humanity at the door.
Yeah, and there's a big controversy burning over here in the UK at the moment. So the Labour Party, the left-wing party over here, having their annual conference, and one of the senior members of the Labour Party was reported to have said on Sunday evening that she called the Tories scum. The Conservative, she called the right-wing party in government scum. And that, actually, funny enough, that's a kind of term that's been attached to the Tories, to the Conservative Party for years and years and years. And the media over here is jumping on this, saying, should she be allowed to use the word scum, this offensive word? Wouldn't even get bleeped out on Joseph Jaffe's show, but should she be allowed to use it? Interestingly, she also accused in the same sentence the Conservatives of being homophobic, racist and xenophobic. Interestingly, the media haven't picked up on this at all, but they're just hooking onto this word scum. So language always has, words aren't just words. Words bring with them this whole freight of meaning. And that's why I think you have to be really careful about the words you use.
Well, funnily enough, myself being a Tottenham Hotspur fan, I wouldn't bleep out the word scum, but I would bleep out our arch enemy, who I would say are scum. So
there you go.
It's also relative in terms of what is offensive to you. Chris, we're going to get into your book. Which, wait a second, what's that?
Wait a second.
What's that in the background? Do I see?
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't even see it there.
Is it that? Or
well,
is it that? Or I'm celebrating with you. In fact, I'll even say today's episode is sponsored in part by Strong Language. So you can see You want more? I'll give you. You want more? I'll give you more, my friend. No, I'm so excited. By the way, I'm not saying this gratuitously. I'm teaching at NYU, and I'm going to tell my students to watch this episode, and I'm actually going to recommend to NYU that they buy this book or incorporate. In fact, I'm going to make sure this book is recommended reading in my brand strategy course. So there's a lot of excitement that is shared. Go and buy Strong Language, the fastest, smartest, cheapest marketing tool you're not using. Better, cheaper, faster, and you do not have to pick two. You can pick all three as well. How's that for validation?
Yeah.
But I want to get into this, like en masse. One of the things that I picked up as well is there were like a couple of phrases as well, like the power of, just do it. May the odds ever be in your favor. Take back control. Talk a little bit about what makes these phrases special. I am teaching this right now in terms of how to build brand and brand identity and brand purpose and brand resonance and helping my students recognize that it isn't just a tagline. It's not just throwaway. There's a lot of thinking and science and planning and structure and process that goes into it. So talk about these phrases, for example, as examples of this done right.
Yeah, of course, you're absolutely right. And it's like we were saying before, language is never just words. Language is all the meaning that you somehow sum up and put in to a short sentence. So my business, Verbal Identity, we have this strapline for ourselves, really, which is the magic and mechanics of brand language. Because if you come from the creative world, as I do, as a copywriter in ad agencies, if you come from the creative world, then you think that all writing is this kind of magic process. If you come from a more sciencey background, and my undergraduate, my postgrad was in science, then you think, well, science has got a role in explaining everything. So, it took me until I was about 50 to realize that I could put these two streams together and build a business, which is the magic and mechanics of brand language. So whenever we look at something like just do it, may the odds be forever in your favor, there's always going to be a bit of magic and there's always going to be a bit of mechanics. And the skill, I think, is to make them work together. So, we look at things like that. I mean, there's certain things which will always hold true, which is there's something very powerful about a statement, which is 3 words and 3 words only. Just do it. And there was a really good fictionalized account of the Take Back Control campaign in the UK, which led Britain out of the European Union. And the author of the campaign, the kind of creator of the campaign that was so successful, apparently studied for ages the phrase take control. That's what he was trying to, use as the spearhead of the campaign, take control. And he looked at it and he knew it wasn't right. And suddenly it came to life when he put back in the middle, take back control. It suddenly brought the whole message much more to life. So I don't think I could ever explain, or anyone could ever explain, why 3 words are right, or why something like just do it or take back control work. I mean, with a bit of language skill, we can see them as declarative statements, very pointed. There must be something in the rule of 3. But the other great line that a lot of people remember is, you had me at hello. And now there was a great piece of research done a few years ago, which looked at famous movie lines and looked at what made them stick in people's minds. And maybe it's something for your students or for somebody else who wants to think about crafting a particular line. And it's really this. What the research found was the sentences which are most successful have a recognizable structure, but they blow up the logic in the last word. So you had me at hello really kind of confounds you, because it was, you had me when you were walking through the door. You had me at hello. Maybe not the best explanation, Joseph, but we're going to get away with it today, I hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, it shows that there is method to the madness. But it's not I like it because there always has to be some discipline. You know, one of the things I say to my students is we're building a house, right? A brand house, a structure, but you can't build it on shaky ground. You can't build it on quicksand. So everything has to begin with a solid foundation, and then you can do what the hell you want. You know, then you can have fun and you can mix it up. So I like that a lot in terms of recognizing that there is a formula, and yet there is then the tweak, the customization, the surprise,
Yeah.
and delight. So
Yeah.
that's a good example. You know, I found, like I do on the show, I look for a couple of quotes, and it's very funny because I found two quotes. One of them you may get, and one of them you definitely will get. Here's the first one. So funny because you use the word magic, and I
Yeah.
found I learned that language, always the language, was the magic key as much to prose as to poetry. And I don't know that you will get this one, but this week, because you are Chris number 2, right? Chris Matz,
Yeah.
Chris
Yeah.
West, Chris Wallace, and all the quotes are coming from Chris's. This is Christopher or Chris Hitchens.
Okay.
So this was the quote, but then I found another one for you because, you know, you're special, so you get 2, which is some people. This is the one you better
Love
get.
this. Yeah, I love
Some people
this.
have a way with words. Some people not have way. And I was like, wait a second, did I write that correctly?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Steve Martin, right?
Steve, I don't know why it says Steve Martins. I know. Is
Maybe you were going to put an apostrophe S. It's Steve Martin's quote.
I think that's what I was trying to do. Yes, Steve Martins, exactly. So talk a little bit about why you love this quote.
I mean, it's the same thing, right, that we talked about just now, which is it has a structure. Some people have a way with words, and you think you know what he's going to say at the end. Some people don't have a way with words. And actually, so you've got a familiar structure, and he confounds your expectation at the end by screwing up the language. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's just simple and beautiful, and it makes me smile every time.
I mean, it's probably one of the most famous ones is Apple, right? In terms of think different.
Yeah.
As opposed to
absolutely.
think differently. So,
Yeah.
these there are definitely a bunch of ways, but I think in this book you've gone a lot further. And I was I was looking at all these things, and I was thinking I want to ask him all of these questions. So for example,
that's the extended show. That's the 4-hour version of the show.
I'm telling you. So like, I mean, that's why I think it's a bit of a masterclass, this book. So for example, you spoke about brand voice works on 3 levels.
Yeah.
What are those levels?
Well, oh, that's so kind of you to ask about that, because I think that's the heart of what we do. And right at the beginning, you said, you know, Chris's firm has worked with startups. They've worked with national brands, global brands, luxury brands, tech brands, fintech, all of these, right? So is there a possible way that all of these businesses could use one framework? And there was, and it really comes out of how language works, or how almost all communication works, we think. But to explain it, let me take a step back. Maybe 25 years ago, if you didn't really have to think too hard about defining the voice of your brand or defining the voice of your company. 25 years ago, you really had 2 people writing for your business, probably. You had a copywriter over at your ad agency, and then you had a copywriter over at your direct mail agency, as they used to be called before they were called direct marketing. And either your ad agency guy, usually guys, got the brand voice, yeah, they've got it, or it was the other way around, and it was the direct marketing person, and they got the voice, right? But either way, you just said to one or the other, look, that one over there, they've got the voice, copy that. And really, there are only a couple of channels. I mean, of course, there was TV, there was posters, press, right? But there wasn't a whole lot of velocity, volume of communications that your business needed to be writing. And now, you've got 30 different brand channels, plus you've got everything else that's happening. And suddenly, you need to be responsible for a much bigger volume, that's for sure, but also a much kind of smarter velocity, if you like. Things have to be happening faster. They have to be sent in the right direction. 25 years ago, You could probably, if you wanted to, define your brand voice with 4 adjectives, human, friendly, warm, and approachable, and share, but you'd still be talking to your writers and just saying, do it that way. Now you've got 50 brand channels, plus you've got this greater volume, plus you've got this. So you can no longer define the voice in such a simple way. What we noticed is, so, when you look at the brands that are doing amazingly well in their communications, and probably the best example is Oatly, then what is going, just how is that possible?
It's the magic and the mechanics of this show.
Oh, I'm almost overwhelmed.
But almost. Thank you for
almost,
saying
just because I'm going to
so
say
close to overwhelming you.
There's going to be more. I know there's going to be more tricks.
I'll do better in 48.3.
Okay. Oh wow! I better get another book written. So if you look at brands like Oatly, if you look at any brand that's got this really strong brand voice which is engaging you, what you actually notice, first of all, it's consistent, but it's flexible as well. So how are they doing that? Well, all of what Oatly's doing is driven by this kind of overarching narrative, this sense that exists almost like at 10,000 feet, which is laying out the territory that Oatly's going to be in when they talk about their stuff. This is the world we believe in. And if this is the world we believe in, these are the things we stand for. And if we stand for those things, we're going to have to stand really clearly against those things. That's like at 10,000 feet. And then if you kind of come down to 1,000 feet, then you get into the personality or the tone of voice. And what's the personality that Oatly uses, which best represents this overarching narrative? Now, you can have different brands, who are both trying to do the same thing, both trying to change the world for the better in their own eyes and doing it this particular way. And they could differentiate themselves by having a different tone of voice, different personality, as long as their personalities in their own way reflect what's going on at 10,000 feet. So you've got an overarching narrative, you've got the personality represented at 1,000 feet. And then if you think about it, down at what we would say is ground level, you've got the kind of very simple, sometimes choices you can almost put your finger on the copy. So the grammar, sentence length, jargon. We talked about jargon. Do we use a lot of jargon or no jargon at all? And so once you've got those 3 levels defined, and once you've made sure that each of those 3 levels reinforces the other 2 levels, then actually you've got a fantastic coherent tone of voice. Because what happens is, up at 10,000 feet, you can brief all your writers and you can say, this is the world we believe in. So therefore, we're going to be writing, what we're going to be writing about. You can choose what we're going to be writing about. And if we've got to write about the same as everyone else, you can understand that we're going to take this particular angle on it. And then you can bring it to life in this kind of personality with this kind of tone. And then just to make sure we're consistent, make sure we keep the ground levels consistent. And an example of that is we worked with Fred Perry, the UK clothing brand, really wonderful brand. And the CEO there used to have to keep on telling his teams, look, we don't use the word store, we use the word shop, because store is an Americanism, but we're a British brand, so we use shop. So these markers in language appear at ground level, but similarly about a formal grammar and informal grammar, that's at ground level as well. So the framework is 10,000 feet, 1,000 feet, ground level. And once you've defined that, you've suddenly got a framework that all your teams can sign off on, that you can sign off on, that you can refer back to. So I think that really helps.
I have so many points that I want to make based on what you said. I'll try and work backwards and remember them. One is I always, store and shop. Great. So I'll start with that. One of the things that I've always noticed, and I don't know why, but in every, specifically in hospitality and travel and leisure in the US, they'll use the word pardon the appearance. Like you go into a W hotel, and you'll be in the elevator and they'll go, pardon. It's very interesting because it's not American English, I don't believe. It's not something that we use formally, except if a president is, pardoning his corrupt cronies. I'm just kidding.
If that were ever to happen, I don't know if that happens.
Exactly. Hypothetically,
in real life.
Hypothetically, it's just in fantasy land.
Yeah.
But it would be excuse the appearance, or sorry, or but pardon. That's a word that always and it gets my attention because it's not what I would expect. And then of
Shall I
course,
tell you?
and
Shall
I
I
was
tell you
going to.
why? Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to
So-
say, and then of course, one of the most famous ones as well is Disney, right? Referring to their customers as guests and referring to their employees as cast members. Also being very particular to use a different word to call out key, elements of what the brand is about.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, that pardon thing. And I've got an intuition about it, and we could do some research about it. Maybe that would be in show 48.3.
Or four,
But,
well, like,
I mean,
with
let's
so
not tie
much we're
ourselves up.
planning, going to
Yeah,
become
I
a
mean, we've
regular.
already filled 0.3. So yeah, you're right. We're going to be looking at 0.4 already. But I think pardon comes with this baggage, with this echo of demure, ultra polite society. It's not everyday language, but it's something you might find from a more refined crowd. I think. I don't know. That's my English ears listening to it, not American ears. But if that's the case, then you can see what the hotel is trying to do, what the leisure industry business is trying to do, is kind of affect some sense of politeness. So what it does is it puts the interaction between the business and the customer, it kind of forces it into this ultra polite space where the customer's not going to start having a dig at the business for not having the lift working. Because in ultra polite, demure society, you don't do that. You kind of make your pardon excuses first, and then everyone goes along with it because we're all very demure and polite. I reckon that might be what's going on there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, when we think about language becoming more inclusive and us being, less snobby, if you will, because I know you think that a couple of interesting things about you, right? One is you think grammar is a class war, and here's something else. Of course, in my soliloquy, I spoke about my biggest pet peeve, which is your and your. But you believe actually that the apostrophe in its should be done away with. It's confusing and serves no purpose. And I was just thinking, this is a genius idea, because this one would be so easy to do. Your and your is a little bit harder. But are we, in terms of, scum and deplorables, are we actually, creating division, or could we be creating more unity and more collaboration and more inclusivity if we were a little bit more strategic with respect to our word choice and our use of grammar?
Yeah, I think grammar is a class war, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that would say, well, we're not being exclusive. It's very inclusive. We made the rules very clear. All we need to do now is everyone needs to make sure that they abide by our rules. And I think that's the nature of what's wrapped up in grammar, is there's a sense of rules. And I really wanted to make sure the book wasn't another kind of diatribe about polite language in society. And I really wanted to make sure it wasn't another kind of here's how you write better, because there are already, I think, too many of those books. What I really wanted the book to do was to kind of help teams in startups, in big businesses, in marketing departments, whatever it was. I wanted them to feel really comfortable with language and start using language really powerfully, to the best of, use all of language's power. And so the point I was making about grammar as a class war is some people see rules as a way to restrict activity, and some people see rules as a way to just kind of make sure that we all agree. And I think that sometimes grammar rules are a way to restrict people. You haven't done it right, rather than just rules to make sure we all agree and for clarity, so I can distinguish between it's ITS and it's IT apostrophe S. So I mean, if you don't mind, Joseph, so I live in Oxford, as you said at the beginning, so I'm surrounded by a lot of really well-educated people, and I went to the local famous bookstore, and there was someone there giving a talk, about the English language, and he was being kind of snotty about how people use the English language. And he was making the old joke about the greengrocer's apostrophe, you know, who says the greengrocer writes tomatoes with an apostrophe S at the end. And he was kind of but behind him was this big banner about his book. And it had about 4 exclamation marks, one after the other. Now, as far as I'm concerned, right, 1 exclamation mark is the rule. What are you doing with 4? Right, so he's quite happy to have a little laugh at the greengrocer, but no one's having a laugh at him and saying, hey, you're using 4 apostrophe screamers, you know, 4 exclamation points, when really 1 is the rule. And I think that's what's going on I think that's what goes on quite a lot in grammar. That people are using it often as a marker of social class.
It's so interesting. And I mean, when the reality is all he needs is 1 exclamation point or 1 exclamation mark and a big red one. You know, and this is the one.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, he should have just realized what he needed was 1. It needed to be red and needed to be big.
Yeah.
But Chris, you know, a very, you know, clearly a key element of this is this concept of strong language. So define strong language. You know, we'll talk about grammar, but what is strong language is, you know, we think about authoritarian and stern and
Yeah.
you know, and loud, but I have a feeling that there's more to it than just that, right?
Yeah, I think it's about businesses being able to use language to the maximum of its power. So I think every business owner now has really sweated their visual identity. You know, they would know exactly, this is our logo. This is what our logo always looks like. This is our color palette. When it comes to photography, we use this kind of style. This is our font, nothing else, no variety. And they haven't done that with their language. So first of all, you've got to be thinking language, which is this nuanced, amazing thing created by humans. If they're not really defining it, they're probably missing out on something. So what I meant by strong language wasn't necessarily coarse or harsh or authoritarian. It was just, how can you use language more powerfully in your business? You know, how can you be like Oatly? You know, you very brilliantly brought up that slide of, again, how is it possible?
I don't even know. I don't even know. At this point, it's just automatic.
It's like, is this the JJAI thing that you told me not to talk about? The one that just automatically generates.
I'm not even human, to be honest.
Well,
my heart now is artificially intelligent.
So they started with the heart and they just built the artificial JJ around it.
Everything was rotten from there. No, but you know, you by the way, you're making a great point, and you're making you're making a point that, and you also said something else that I was reading up that I thought was quite brilliant, which I'm going to touch on and then hand it back to you. So one is we've been so diligent with respect to the idea of visual identity, the you know, the Pantones, and you know, the style guide, you know, the whole, everything is about those brand guidelines, but we have not done that, you know, in terms of this, you know, verbal identity. So that is a point. And I think what Oatly does really well is you can actually see with Oatly, and you know, that the actual words are the art, that the words, the copy heavy approach is in fact part of the design. So I think that's the other part of why this works so nicely, because they've figured out a beautiful way. They've realized that visual is, you know, is you know, telling a story, and words are visual. You know, and they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and they've just completely like recognized, guess what? You know, I mean, it's true, right? Especially when the picture that's worth 1,000 words, you know, has got 1,000 words on it. So it's quite brilliant. So I'd love you to just continue talking about this idea of this, you know, this elevation of verbal identity, to kind of take its place with visual identity. But then you also have this like really brilliant point, I think, about, guidelines and guardrails in terms of how we should be thinking about this.
So the thing about strong language, the thing I wanted to try and help people understand is that when you look at Oatly, when you see something they've written, you remember it. There's like 115 million companies in the world today. And how many of them can you remember anything they've written? Like 2 minutes after you've read it and walked away, you can't remember anything. Most of them don't have a voice. And what I mean by they don't have a voice is they don't have a distinctive voice, and they don't have a distinctive point of view coming out in that voice. Oatly does. Oatly really does. Oatly's identified what it stands for, the kind of world it believes in, what it stands against. There's a couple of other brands that do it as well. I think Brewdog have done it in the past. I'm not sure if they're doing it as well at the moment. Headspace, if you meditate or you've heard about people spending a little bit of time meditating, Headspace has a very distinctive voice. And what it means, once you've got a voice, once you've got this kind of 10,000 foot overarching narrative, this world you believe in, once you've got this kind of personality at 1,000 feet, what it means is you can actually start saying stuff to your reader. You can start speaking to them one-to-one. You can start saying stuff they remember. You can start positioning yourself as more interesting, more valuable, more worth listening to. And the interesting thing I think about Oatly is there is another brand of oat milk. Basically, if you don't know Oatly, that's fine. But what Oatly is oat milk, right? So it's not milk from a cow. It's not part of the dairy industry. It's part of the plant kingdom. And if you're a dairy dodger for whatever reason, like I am, right, you're going to start using oat milk. And oat milk is oat milk is oat milk. Oat milk is oats in water, and that's it, right? And I can't tell the difference between one brand of oat milk and another brand of oat milk. But on one hand, you've got Oatly, and on the other hand, you've got another well-known brand, which I won't reference today. They both taste the same, right? I've not met anyone that can taste the difference. They both come in 1 liter packs, and the packs are exactly the same. They're Tetra Pak packs. They're exactly the same. They're even sold in the same stores next to each other. And I don't know what their price point is, but they're going to be roughly the same. Now, the one I won't reference is valued at 70 million. And when you look at their copy, when they're writing about themselves, they've got this kind of, we should be a bit healthy, yeah, really? We should all be healthy. Thanks for the news. Like, there's nothing new there. There's no new worldview. There's no personality coming across. And then when you look at Oatly, Oatly says, bang, right? What you got to understand is, as far as Oatly is concerned, the dairy business is killing the climate, and the dairy business has got to answer some questions. And so we're going to stand up for a plant-based oat milk. We're going to start standing up for options and things like this, right? And its personality, right? It could do that in quite a nice way, but its personality is forceful. It's campaigning, it's pioneering, it's challenging, right? It's challenging. And the brand I just mentioned, which has got this kind of brand voice, is valued at, I think, 70 million. And if you've been reading the news, Oatly this year floated with a valuation now of 13 billion. They're both oat milk. They both taste the same. They're both sold in the same packets. They're both in the same stores, right?
I don't even know what the other brand is.
Okay. Well, people can write to me and I'll tell them for the sake of the shame of the other brand. But Oatly's got this amazing voice, and what's it doing with that voice? It's making itself famous. It's cutting down on its advertising costs. It's turning up in conversations like this. It's just winning more customers.
Great example.
It's deepening loyalty. Yeah, it's deepening loyalty. And at the end of it, so what? Well, $13 billion of so what?
So exactly. So money talks and Oatly walks. So I want to ask you just two little lightning round questions, because I want you to touch on guardrails versus guidelines and how you feel about the one versus the other. And then the final question, as I said, there's so much packed into this book. I really think it's like a textbook. but this idea of selling through to senior management, because, it's one of the questions I get asked all the time when I'm giving a keynote. How do we sell this through? How do we sell social media? How do we sell digital? From the beginning of time when I've been giving these presentations, I want to hear your point of view in terms of how to sell that through. So guidelines, guardrails, senior management.
Okay, I'll try and do my best to remember both of those things. So a lot of people think that guidelines, when they hear guidelines, they suddenly feel like, oh no, I'm going to be really restricted. And in language, if you're an art director, you don't want that. But to a certain extent, you understand that guidelines, we know what they're there for. They're to help us, right? But in language, who wants guideline? Who wants kind of guidelines? I mean, I do use the phrase guidelines in the book. But who wants to be too restricted in how they speak? So actually, sometimes it's quite useful to think of language and your brand's your verbal brand, your verbal identity, having guardrails, which is not really restrictive. It's just don't go too far over there, don't go too far over there. So I think that's the point about guardrails and guidelines. And really what everyone should be doing when they're seeing some guardrails or guidelines, or whatever you call them, about your brand language, they should feel like, okay, this is a platform for me to work off, not this is a kind of cage which is going to stop me. So I think that framework that we talked about that's in the book, the 10,000 foot ground level, really does give people a sense of, okay, now I've got the freedom to be more creative.
Yeah,
and
by the way, it's very similar to something that I would often say, which is, I don't mind the box, right? They always say think outside the box. I don't mind the box as long as I'm allowed to operate freely and liberally within the box. So it can be as it can be as small as you want it to be, but let me be me in the space that you have defined or that we have defined together. And I think that speaks to your point as well. You might have some kind of parameters, but then let me get on with my, if you will. So final things, selling through to senior management.
Yeah, I mean, I think of course, sometimes we get calls from the founder of a business, we get a call from the CEO, but often it's a marketing director, or it's a brand director, or it's a customer service director. And they say, I know the language isn't good enough. I know if I put my hand over the bottom of our language, no one would know it was us having written that. So how do you win senior support? I mean, I think there's a good bit of good news at the end. But before we get to the good news, I think you can do a small survey of people around the business, and you will very quickly see how people are frustrated with the language. So, it's not just, I think, when you go and see someone senior, I think we need to change, but you can walk in with a small survey, and the book's got some questions you can pose in that small survey. I think that you can also start looking at some of the kind of hard metrics, the impact of having a brand voice which isn't strong enough. So, what kind of factory would allow 30, 40, 50% of what it produces to come straight back in the front door with, not good enough written on it? But often that's the case for creative teams in agencies, or sometimes in-house communications teams. What they're writing is being written and rewritten. So if you can calculate the cost of that, I mean, if it's 30% of your writers, if it's 30% of your writers' output is being rewritten, then essentially, if you can get that right first time, then you've got a saving of 30%, which is amazing. And then, so there's a little bit about that in the book as well. And I think often one of the best ways to win senior support is to look for the quick wins. We know there are things which are going to have a high impact and are going to take 3-4 years to fix. But there's other things which have a high impact and actually are quite noticeable. And we can often change those quite quickly. So again, being able to spot the quick wins is pretty good. But the kind of good news I was promising earlier is this, which is we've noticed the higher up you go in a business, the more senior the person you're talking to, the more they understand language. Why is that? And I think it's because what's a CEO got except the language and their thinking to kind of persuade people? That's their job every hour of every day, is to persuade people of their vision, to persuade people that they can do it, to persuade. And it's language that they're using. And often the more senior the person you're talking to in business, they're more familiar with the power of language, and they're more keen for the whole business to somehow be trained in good language and in good writing.
It's
So I
great.
think,
You know, I mean, that's so great. It's like sell them on language using language, but there's another point as well, which is brand voice can sometimes be a little bit more ephemeral, a little bit harder, but there are specific words, word choices, phrases that should be as uniquely identifiable and differentiated as a logo, you know, as a color, etc. And
yeah,
when you put it all on an equal footing, you should be able to say, I know exactly which brand, which category, as opposed to it could be any automotive car brand or
yeah.
advertising.
That's the example. Sorry, James. That's the example in the book. 80 words of copy from Mini, next to 80 words of copy from Ferrari. Both pieces of copy are describing how their car takes a corner. But in the book, we've taken out every indication of which is Mini and which is Ferrari. There's no pictures, there's no font choices, there's no styling at all. And I've been doing this 10 years, I've never met anyone that's thought that's Mini when it's Ferrari or the other way around. Everyone gets it. How come? Right? And it's just from how the language is constructed. It's just from the worldview. It's just from the personality. You know, and Mini and Ferrari, you would be able to hear the difference if they drove past my house now. You'd be able to see the difference from a quarter of a mile away, right? You'd be able to tell the difference if you're sitting inside them. So why shouldn't the language be as differentiated? And I think every brand can do that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are well over time because this is what happens when we immerse ourselves and we go down the rabbit hole of strong language. I am about to get into my Mini and drive off. Chris, with his best-selling sales, is about to get into his Ferrari and drive off.
One of the Ferraris.
This has been guest number 48.2.1.3.4 beta, Chris West, founding partner of Verbal Identity. If you want to connect with him, he is very active on LinkedIn. You can also connect with him on Twitter. But most importantly, go and buy Strong Language, the fastest, smartest, and cheapest marketing tool you're not using. Chris, it has been a pleasure, even more so the second time around. And Chuck Norris agrees with me.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Joseph.
Good luck with the launch.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.